So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the Uyghur Muslims and the fact that they could be allowed to seek genocide ruling against China in the UK and some of the implications that could have on China. And so this is important. It's an important issue to talk about here. China have put the Uyghur Muslims into essentially detention camps where a lot of them are dying and suffering and having their their culture and religion taken away from them by China. It's a horrific um, it's a horrific set of actions by China, and it does echo some of the things the Nazis have done. Aside from obviously the burning people inside the furnace, essentially the human furnace that they made. And this is not a million miles away. This is more similar to, I guess, the ghettos and camps, concentration camps that they made for Jewish people, and this is what the Chinese have done for Muslim people, Muslim Uyghur Muslims, and it's just horrible situation to be in. So we'll talk about what the UK is doing and some other stuff. So let's break this down. So Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities will be given the right to petition a UK High Court to declare that genocide is taking place in China, requiring the UK government to curtail trade ties with Beijing under proposals brought by MPs and peers. So the challenge will be proving that there is an actual genocide in China. No one's really been able to do that, just like no one's been able to prove there's an actual genocide happening in Yemen, despite people saying that there is a genocide, and having some of the clear signs of things like mass murder and things like that as a sign of genocide, but without being able to physically prove it. It's this could be on shaky ground. Not saying I am saying that there is very possibly, I mean seriously possibly, a genocide happening in Yemen. Definitely I would say that there's a genocide happening in Yemen. China I think might be a bit more difficult to prove, but we'll look at the definition of a genocide after we've gone through this first article. So, cross-party parliamentary revolt is causing deep concern in government, where there are fears that judges and human rights campaigners could be empowered to throw UK-China relations into turmoil. The moves are being led by former cabinet minister Ian Duncan Smith, a very unlikely hero in this scenario, but I'll take it. But have cross-party support. Under the proposals, human rights campaigners would be, for the first time, be able to seek redress in the UK courts for cases of alleged genocide, instead of the issue being determined by the UN, where deep political divisions mean that those committing war crimes can effectively act with impunity. My friend Clara did a really good essay on the United Nations Security Council, and the fact that what happens is, if you're a member of the United States Security Council, if you've got friends there, they can just veto any actions that the UN does against you, and therefore you can act with impunity. But if this happens and it goes to the UK courts, that means if campaigners can prove that there is a genocide going, according to the legal definition of the word, then that puts the UK in a very precarious position, and it could force the UK to take action, despite those in charge not wanting to. We've seen that with Saudi Arabia, and that's something we'll talk about in a minute. The breadth of the revolt also reflects the pressure on the government to use its economic levers to take a tougher line towards China in the wake of national security law in Hong Kong introduced in summer. Ian Duncan Smith said the government has still not got it on human rights on China. Still not got it on human rights in China. If an African country was doing what China is doing, ministers would be all over it. But because China's size and influence at the UN, it runs away. It is time we stood against the abuses underway within China. UK Parliamentary Pro-Uyghur Alliance is proposing that no trade bill regulations be allowed to come into effect if a High Court judge makes a preliminary determination that a party to a relevant trade agreement is committing genocide. So basically, we can't set up a trade deal with a country that is said to be committing genocide if it's determined by the High Courts. An amendment to the trade bill is expected to be passed in the Lords, and Ian Duncan Smith would pick it up in the Commons, where he expects the support of more than 40 Tory rebels, enough to defeat the government. If they do this, I would have to give them a lot of credit. Because Labour have been quiet on this. I've got an article from Starmer talking about this, talking about economic sanctions being needed. But the fact that Ian Duncan Smith is the guy picking this up here and not Keir Starmer, I'm very embarrassed. Extremely embarrassed, especially after Starmer's words on Kashmir saying that it's an internal issue for India to decide. I'm incredibly disappointed in Starmer. And, if Ian Duncan Smith is the guy, then Ian Duncan Smith is the guy, regardless of all the other stupid and horrible things he's done. If he's going to pick up the banner and charge with this, then, 100% I'll have to be behind him. The measure has the backing of an array of peers, including two Conservative cabinet ministers, Saida Warsi and Michael Forsyth, the crossbench human rights campaigner David Alton, Liberal Democrats, and former head of Number 10 policy unit under Tony Blair, Andrew Adonis. Legal figures in the Lords are also back in the move. Some senior judges feel their credibility was damaged when they assured peers last year that the presence of British judges on the Hong Kong courts would act as a restraint on China. Definitely did not do that. Overseas judges have now been debarred from national security cases in Hong Kong, so we basically got cucked by China. The government's trade bill is largely a measure to ensure the UK government can sign continuity trade agreements with after Brexit with countries after the EU has agreements with them. The EU has a trade deal with China dating back 10 years, but requests for the UK courts to determine that China is committing genocide could force ministers to tear up the agreement. So if it's found that China is doing a genocide under this bill, if the amendments go through, what that means is we cannot continue trade deals with countries that are committing a genocide. So the trade deal that the EU has with China is gone. Basically, if the campaigners can prove that a genocide is happening within China, and if this legislation goes through, ministers are already on the back foot over the issue since the same cross-party Human Rights Alliance labelled parallel amendments to the Telecommunications Leasehold Property Bill. These amendments would have prevented firms linked to human rights abuses having access to the UK telecoms network. The amendment is primarily targeted at the Chinese telecoms firm Huawei. That could be because Trump has gone ham against Huawei as well. Maybe we're trying to put our foot in as well. I'm not sure. The UK ministerial rhetoric on the UN Human Rights Council has been increasingly critical about Chinese repression against people in the western Xinjiang region. There is increasing evidence that China is imprisoning enormous numbers of people from primarily Muslim Uighur population. A report from last week found that China has now built nearly 400 camps. Some people who have fled the region have told of programs of forced sterilization for Uighur Muslims. The Human Rights Minister, Lord Ahmed, last Friday called for international observers to be given unfettered access to Xinjiang. Ahmed added there was compelling evidence, including from the Chinese government's own documents, of gross human rights abuses. The Foreign Office says that it is for international bodies such as International Criminal Court to decide if genocide is underway. Critics say the use of the veto by the major powers at the UN Security Council means references to the court are impossible. And so what the UK are saying is for the international courts to decide. What campaigners are saying is the international courts can't make an actual decision about this because they get vetoed. They get vetoed by the Security Council because that's how the Security Council works. That's what it takes for one country to veto the decision. And I have that essay from my friend. I'll be reviewing that sometime soon. I was meant to do that months ago, but I think this is a good time to pick it up. So here's Starmer talking about urges Boris Johnson to impose human rights sanctions against China. So Boris Johnson is facing escalating pressure. So this is in July to impose human rights sanctions on China, as Sir Keir Starmer urged the government not to turn a blind eye to the deeply disturbing actions of Beijing. So what Starmer has to do is team up with Ian Duncan Smith over this one. That's what has to happen here in order to get the Tory rebels to say that do not be on the side of genocide here. Be on the right side of history for once in your lives. So how the court works. So the court's founding treaty called the Rome Statute, this is the ICC, gives jurisdiction over 4 main crimes, but countries that don't allow the International Criminal Court aren't held by it. So first, the crime of genocide is characterized by specific intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial or religious group by killing their members or by other means, causing seriously bodily or mentally harm to the members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculating to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group or forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. And we've seen forced sterilization in the article. If we look at it here, Uighur Muslim teacher tells of forced sterilization in Xinjiang. So what they're doing is stopping these people from having children, forced sterilization on these people. And it's a horrible situation to be in because the UN Security Council is run so badly that it can't make a decision on this. And if we look at this, Dominic Raab saying that the UK could boycott the Winter Olympics. It's not the biggest thing in the world to do, but it is a sign that to an extent we will not stand for this. But we need much bigger actions here for any actions to happen. Economic sanctions have to be imposed on China. That's the only way to get anything done, and that's even then it may not be that effective, but all these countries have to come together. The EU and the US and as many other countries as possible has to get together and boycott China. That's the only way we'll get any change. Activists want UN to probe genocide of China's Uighur Muslims. So nearly 24 activist groups have said a genocide is taking place against mostly Muslim Uyghurs in China's remote Xinjiang region, where reported 1 million people are being held in camps. 1 million people are being held in these camps. It's crazy the lengths China has gone to imprison these people for no reason whatsoever, apart from the fact that they're different to Chinese people. And it's just you know, it's just. I don't know what to say. 16 individuals, including academics from the US and European universities, co-signed the letter which said that there was mounting evidence that crimes against humanity and genocide are taking place in Xinjiang. And it's caused a lot of problems with, Chinese actors as well, having to jump in and praise China, essentially, over this. So, anyways, if you look at the UN Security Council, there's 5 permanent members, and then you get a lot of floating members who come in once in a while. So the 5 permanent members are China, France, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, and the United States, and 10 non-permanent members elected for 2-year terms by the General Assembly. So basically, because China are a permanent member, no one can touch them because the UN can't make a decision. The UN have been cucked, essentially, by the Security Council. And the Security Council, there has to be a change to the Security Council. It has to be like, say, 2 permanent members and 1 floating member, or 1 permanent member and 2 floating members to veto something. That's the only way that we'll get somewhere in this. But we've got Belgium, the Dominican Republic, Estonia, Germany, Indonesia, Niger, Saint Vincent and Grenadines, South Africa, Tunisia, and Vietnam. And so if we keep going here, if we look at the UK and what we've done, the UK to resume arms sales to Saudi Arabia despite possible war crimes in Yemen, government minister says. So the fact that we're doing over this, we're saying that we're doing this over human rights is fine, but we need to fix up with other countries, and if one of the issues is that you've got people in forced camps and forced sterilizations, we should be really looking at the US as well, because they've done the same thing to a lot of those people who are coming over the border, asylum seekers and illegal migrants coming over the border. And the US is doing the exact same thing, forcing them into camps, taking them away from their children, and putting them in other groups, and forced sterilizations as well. So the US is not innocent in this absolutely whatsoever, but we need to focus our energy on each thing and really push for the courts to actually do something here. And until there's reform in the UN, nothing will change at the UN level. So if this happens at a national level, I'll take it all day long. And the EU needs to step up its game here as well and actually do something. Put economics aside here and actually do something for human rights. If we look at this, genocide is in Yemen, is the West complicit? So this is a thing you can read. I don't know if it's free or not. So this essay examines the current state of heavy conflict in Yemen and the possible genocide taking place. The genocide used in this context in this essay is defined as the deliberate killing of a large group of people, especially those of a particular ethnic group or nation. The main question is 2 parts. First, is there a genocide in Yemen? Secondly, if so, is the West complicit? And I think absolutely we are complicit in this. We are complicit in all of them, essentially to different levels. But I'm happy the UK is actually doing something. I just wish we were still part of the EU and we could have pushed for the EU to do something as well, because the EU are barely moving on this, just like they haven't done much for against Saudi Arabia, and just like they haven't done much against the US. So I don't have that much faith, but at least something is happening here. So Ian Duncan Smith, an unlikely hero, but Starmer needs to be front and centre on this one. He needs to be front and centre, and he needs to push for this. If the Labour Party is still about internationalism and helping people, then prove it by doing something. Prove it by being a part of this. If you're Britain first and you want to be about nationalism, fine. I don't know if I can vote for you next time out. I don't know how much support I'll give you next time out. But I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.